actually knew nothing. I actually had to contact my dad and say, who's Ruth Ellis? And he said, oh my gosh. You know, so he obviously told me quite a bit. But then I had to research it because, you know, it's not something I was aware of, which is quite strange because now researching, we're the same age, and it hits home a little bit actually to think she went through that at the same age as I am now.
I was a 12-year-old schoolgirl at the time this was happening, and I remember coming home on the bus from school and seeing the billboards outside the newsagents. No reprieve yet for Ellis, and that went on all week. And each day you were looking because you were sure at the very last minute she was going to be reprieved, and of course she wasn't.
I was aware of it because I watched the film years ago, The Dance with a Stranger with Miranda Richardson. So I was aware of the story, not entirely the ins and outs, but I knew she was the last woman to be hanged in Britain. I knew that.
I've actually spoken to people about it, and they ask me what it's about, and I tell them that it's about the last woman who was hanged in England, and that does tend to grab people's attention because it's not necessarily something that people our age are aware of.
Is there anything more you wish to say?
No, sir.
Are you sure, Mrs. Ellis?
Yes.
The Thrill of Love is really about the story of Ruth Ellis, but I think it's telling the story from her point of view, and it actually shows you about you know, how she came to be where she was. So you don't ever actually get to see Blakely or any of the men in there apart from the inspector. So it's quite interesting. So it's a lot about women in there and how they interact with each other. So as it being about Ruth Ellis, it's all about relationships.
But the interesting thing is, there are about 145 people, women, sentenced to death in the 20th century, and 91% of them were reprieved. So I think part of the fascination with this story is, why not her? And of course, the story that we're telling in The Thrill of Love is how the detective tried very hard to get her to put up some defence. She didn't offer a defence at all, which is why the whole trial was, it was a one-day trial, and from shooting him to being hanged was less than 3 months.
What I've got from the character reading the script and having to do a bit of research, she is on the surface quite outgoing and, you know, knows what she wants out of life and quite sure of herself. But actually inside, and the inner self of her, she's quite downtrodden, and I think she's very, very vulnerable, but wouldn't show that to the outside world, of course.
Sylvia is the nightclub manager. She's in with the gangster crowd, and she takes Ruth under her wing, or tries to look after her. But obviously, as we know, it doesn't quite work out. Sylvia's seen it all, done it all, and she can see the girls make the mistakes before they even make them. Very cynical character.
I'm Kim Armstrong, and I'm playing the part of Vicky Martin. Or Valerie Muse is a name that she starts with and then she changes it. She's a girl with aspirations. When she first enters the play, she tells, I guess, a fib of where she's actually originally from, because she wants to be from somewhere better, and she has aspirations to be an actress and a model.
Doris is the child lady within the club, so she's one of those characters that just sort of intermingles with the other characters. Quite a nice part to play. She's just a normal sort of working class London girl, so, you know, doesn't work as a hostess, works serving the tea, so she's quite a light relief to the play, I believe.
Obviously, you've sympathy for any mother who has to leave her children, but I wanted people to look at how these girls were so ambitious. To me, they were using the men like the men were using them, each for their own purpose. And what lengths some people will go to get what they want, which was ambition and fame, and it's just so sad.
Have you acted in the round before?
Probably at school, not for so many years ago. So it's it's quite strange. I came to watch a play down here just to see what it was like, and it was a bit like, God, this is close. So, it's going to be new. It's going to be new to me.
I'm enjoying that. It's a different discipline. Find it actually quite freeing. You're not as limited to moves. You can turn around and stand with your back to someone, and it doesn't matter. It's getting the moves seem to be very precise, the way that Sandra's directing it, so which is good. It helps with the lines as well, so you know where you're standing when you learn your lines. And
Yeah, it's a new experience. It's quite good to remember that there are people behind you, at the side of you. So yeah, I quite like it. It's good.
I just think a really, really interesting way that they tell a story about Ruth Ellis, and I think it's really interesting, the relationships, because it's probably from the female side, which is interesting, very, very interesting.